Okay, Brian. So at the moment, my guys who usually listen to this is about they build the transformation and implement it, but the think of the value that you have is that you are engaged at the customer need, the customer facing of them actually engaging with the final solution. Have you seen the needs or the technology change, or what is the changes that are happening recently? Are those needs being met by the technology?
Yeah, I think we're getting there. I think we'll continue to see kind of adoption of virtualization in a multitude of different sectors, healthcare being one of those sectors, as we continue to migrate as a populace from brick and mortar into more virtual settings. I think, the events with COVID and pandemic kind of force fed that to a lot of people, forced adoption that we hadn't really anticipated for at least a few more years, and expedited both scale of telecompanies, whether that
Hmm.
be, organizations like Zoom or Teladoc or other kind of tele or virtual health type companies and telecompanies. I think we'll
Yep.
continue to see kind of iteration and growth and scale as people demand that more so from traditional brick and mortar settings.
Yeah, I remember when not soon after the pandemic started, the Zoom was becoming very popular, but also the what were they called, the prank um, Zoomers who would join in other people's calls, and then there'd be instances of
Yeah.
indecent exposure, if that's the word. Yeah, so some things I think Zoom caught on really quick that their security wasn't up to scratch. Yeah, so with the rush to get these solutions out, there's a case there that maybe they missed a couple of checks and boxes along the way. What are you finding that everyone is in a hurry, but they're not doing the quality assurance?
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of, went straight into the fire, if you will, at that point. Fortunately, as we built kind of a telehealth, system, security and privacy were kind of paramount, way before we were ever needed to scale. And so we built, and I think the industry as a whole really built around that kind of premise, in telehealth specific for, kind of healthcare privacy initiatives and rules and regulations. So
Yep.
we were in a much better position relative to privacy and security than some other companies that were more just focused on kind of video conferencing, if you will,
Uh-huh.
where it was really just kind of point-to-point connectivity.
Yeah.
So we benefited from being in the industry that we were in at that point in time. But
Yep.
it has been, good to see kind of iterations and growth as those organizations have had to painfully scale over the last, couple of years.
Yep. Okay. So, usually what personally my experience has been with this digital transformation is that it's technology led change, and then they'll make maybe towards the end of their development and build and design or implementation, then they'll check with the user and go, okay, is it good enough for you? And most of
Yeah.
the time it was like, well, the business is going to go, it's not really good enough, but we'll let them finish what they're doing and then we'll find a workaround.
Yeah.
And then what I've found is although the technology guys are interested in building their tech, that the things like that security part wasn't front and center. It is like, let's do that last. But you just happened to be that was your first thing you did. Well done.
Yeah, we were in a, obviously a highly secure, highly privatized kind of or private centric industry with healthcare. And
Yep.
so we were well positioned, at that point in time to build appropriately for what we, had no idea was coming downstream.
Yeah, lucky you. So have you seen what is the particular users or demographics that are what first, let's say, a first adopter, or they are or the laggards, maybe it's the elder generation who may actually be in more need of these services, but because of technology, let's say resistance or resistance to change. What have you found?
Yeah, I think initially with telehealth, and then I'll kind of come forward to where we're at with Patient Genie and some of the strategy we have around Patient Genie. With telehealth, it was really early adopters, what you would kind of expect: early adopters, technologists,
Uh-huh.
folks that are used to kind of virtual communication, et cetera.
Yep.
And then COVID hit, and it was just kind of the sky's the limit. It was everyone, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it was moms with kids at home. It was anyone who didn't want to go to the doctor's office. All the major clinics were closed. You had to connect via telehealth, so we were kind of forced fed into a virtual world.
Mm.
And that led itself into the entire populace being a lot more comfortable with virtuality.
Yeah.
And I think as we look at what we're doing with Patient Genie around really kind of expanding the capability for a consumer to own that kind of virtual experience with a provider, both in how they search for a provider, how they find providers, how they engage with providers, having that be more of a virtual experience all the way around, is something that a lesson that we took from that experience. We look at the demographics now as we look at key markets. 18 to 24-year-olds, get 60% of their health information from social networks or social environments. And that's a big capture when you start looking at misinformation and real information, clinical information that isn't getting exposed in those networks or those environments.
Okay, so your platform finds a way, or has a method and means to get around that, or to give them that information that they need.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a digital kind of multi-channel marketing platform that allows healthcare professionals, whether that be, MDDOs, NPs, et cetera, RNs, a better way to engage with consumers. And I use the term consumers purposefully, where consumers are looking for health information, whether that be I moved to a new region and I need to find a doctor, or I just got diagnosed with a new condition and I don't know anything about it and I want to find out more, or even as simple as I'm at home, I've got a headache, I don't want to go to the doctor, but I want more information. I want to make sure I'm getting real information, not misinformation.
Okay, so your platform is dealing in is a replacement of face-to-face meetings with a practitioner.
It can be. We're not necessarily tied into one vehicle of communication. We'll enable both telehealth as well as traditional brick and mortar settings from an engagement and scheduling perspective.
Yep.
So it's really more about kind of, if you will, kind of the Tinder of healthcare, right? Of really taking a consumer that's looking for a service and matching that consumer with the right provider providing that service, and regardless of the delivery of care.
Okay, all right. So there's in the digital health space, and a couple of guys that we've had on, they talk about how different technologies are here now, and wearables, and different types of sensors for heart rate, blood pressure. Are you seeing a demand in that, or a change in demand in that?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to see demand in that. I spent a number of years at Microsoft, a decade or so ago, working on Health Vault, which was their consumer health platform. We were doing devices and device connectivity then. We saw early adopters around, the typical usual suspects that you would see are adopting that tech. I think we'll continue to see growth there, with RPM and home health initiatives that continue to kind of proliferate the market. I think people, as a general rule, are becoming more technologically advanced and savvy with those techs.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a big data guy. So the more data that you can kind of extrapolate in a non-invasive way, the better. And then, you can build the algorithms, you can build the expertise to manage that data and engage people at the point at which they need to be engaged.
Okay, so there's a thing about organizations having the capability, and some organizations, they might call it capability technology, and other organizations, they will call that capability business capability, which includes people, process, and technology. So you're seeing that the organizations B2B, that they are looking to get a solution of the technology solution off the shelf, or they're actually looking to build this capability where they can own, manage it, and improve it?
I think it depends on the strategic imperative of the organization themselves. There's some that, prefer to build and keep it within their four walls. I think there's other that are more partner centric or kind of, market centric, where, they know that they can build some things in house, but sometimes that expertise just doesn't exist in house and needs to be done outside of their four walls. I tend to lean on the latter. I'm a partner centric kind of guy. That's the world I come from. And, I think there's really great products, in their niches, in their swim lanes, especially in healthcare, because it's such a big space. really great niche products there that just, maybe miss some concatenation with other really great products that really could kind of bend the curves that we're all trying to bend.
All right. So do you get involved in the business transformation in the early parts and dealing with organizations? You look at their like a typical clinic, or quite a clinic that has many offices or outlets, and then they'll call you in. How does that normal engagement work for you?
Yeah, I mean, we typically work, because we're at the front end of that kind of consumer engagement side of an organization. We'll typically work with some business transformation, mostly around, tweaking how their advertising dollars are spent to make sure that they're, not only building brand, which is the core of healthcare advertising today, but also kind of meeting consumers where the demand is, right? Whether that be around capacity management or knowledge transfer, or engagement as a general rule. Those are areas where we really focus and work with our customers and prospective customers around how do they engage those consumers at that point that they're looking for care, they're looking for engagement. How do they do that in a meaningful way, as opposed to becoming overbearing or just a brand play.
Okay, it is a good point you mentioned there about engagement. Is in the world I'm used to with they call them user journeys or user experience. Trying to understand what that user journey is across the organization, and then trying to anticipate what their pain points are and how can you improve it. Is it for this industry, for you, is it it's mostly common that everyone's experienced pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, localization might be a little bit different, but we kind of call it the patient journey, right? The existing patient journey, where I'm Brian. I just got diagnosed with something. I want more info about it. And today that process is I go to Google or I go to Bing and I search for that condition. It brings back a bunch of results from WebMD and Healthline and content providers, and I can read about it.
Yep.
But then when I want to actually do something, I can't do anything. And so I've got to then take that onus on me. I got to go to my social networks and say, hey, does anybody else have this? Does anybody have any experience? Yeah. Hey, does anybody know a doctor that treats this, etc.? And then, at least in the US, you've got to go back and find out, is that doctor in your network? Can you even go see that provider? And if you can, then you have to go to the health system's website to see if there's capacity for that doctor to see you. And if there's not, or if any one of those things falls apart, you start over. So it's a completely inefficient consumer experience.
Yep.
How we consume healthcare, completely different than how we consume any other consumable product. And so what we're trying to do is improve that patient journey so that it's a less inefficient pathway.
Okay, so this is almost like a disruption.
Maybe a little bit of a parallel disruption to healthcare in general.
I've lived some time in Australia, 14 years, and the way healthcare works there is, if you have an issue or you want to see a physio, you go straight to the physio, and you don't need to go to a doctor to get a referral. Over here in the UK, if you want to go see a physio, you've got to go see a doctor to get a referral. And really, it's just a meet and greet with the doctor who's going to say, what do you want to do? And then you go see this guy. But it's like, well, I'm in a bit of pain. I'd like to go see someone about it. But it's like they've added an extra step. So what did you do that for? And someone clearly wasn't thinking about the user experience for that one.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, all those providers want to do is provide care to the individuals that are looking for care. Consumers are just looking for somebody to say, hey, yep, your back hurts, let me help you fix that. And we've created a bunch of inefficiencies just because of how the systems work. And there's a better way to get through those inefficiencies than the current modus.
So you find, so two things. What's the process that you follow when you approach maybe a client to they know that their systems are inefficient, or they're mainly brick and mortar, and they go, look, we've got to move online. This is inefficient for us. We can't handle the capacity. We've got queues out the door. We're turning people away. Do you have a process that you go through with engaging them, understanding what their problems are, what a particular solution looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the organization. At this point, most organizations have a virtual front door. They have a
Uh-huh.
virtual health offering because, kind of COVID put that in
Fort them
place
in.
and
Yep.
forced everyone into it.
Hmm.
And so now it's around that balance, striking that balance between their kind of traditional brick and mortar strategy and their virtual health strategy, and
Hmm.
making sure they're capturing the patients that are looking for care at that point in time. And so for us, we tend to lean on the analytical side of that, of saying, hey, here's what we know exists in the consumer world. Here's the searches that we see. Here's the localization that we see.
Hmm.
So if let's say a large health system brings in a new orthopedist, they obviously are coming in with maybe a very small set of patients already, or maybe they got some overflow capacity that's going to go to that orthopedist.
Yep.
But outside of, kind of traditional marketing, there's real no way for that market to understand there's a new orthopedist in town.
Mm.
And, we have consumers that we know are searching for orthopedists on one side of the equation. We have the analytics to then go back and look at that and say, hey, look, we can help navigate those individuals that are looking for an orthopedist to this capacity opening that we've got at one of our health system clients.
Okay, so you use data-driven decision making or insights to make your suggestions or recommendation.
Yeah, so back to that analogy of, the Tinder of healthcare, we use, both the data around capacity management. We also use data around quality rankings. We use data around sheer volume throughput, because all that's public data here. We know how many procedures a provider's done of any kind of, knee replacements, for example, right? So if
Wow.
I'm in Austin, Texas, I can say, look, I want to see the provider that's done the most knee replacements in Austin, Texas, that has my insurance, that speaks Spanish, and has a capacity opening, right?
Yep.
And so we can take all those data points, we can develop the algorithm that allows us to be the best match and
Yep.
create that best match for that consumer that's looking for that orthopedist.
Okay, so uh, so you must have then you focus solely at the moment on the US.
Yeah, primarily focused on the US right now because in our perspective, the problem, we understand well here. We've built, telehealth globally in a past life. We understand the US healthcare problems. I mean, there is obviously global applicability to what we're building here.
Yep.
But the nuances of the different systems, the way they work in different countries, creates a little bit of a lift for us as we look at global expansion. So
Uh-huh.
initially, we'll focus on the U.S. market.
Okay, and so maybe so Japan, for example, has a different type of demographic. So there's different criteria, different needs, different concerns that need to be addressed, and also language issue.
Yep.
So that so that wouldn't be one of the immediate next locations to go and tap into.
I mean, we have a strategy for sure when we look at globalization, and if one of those areas or regions kind of bubble to the top faster than others, either due to investment or due to kind of need,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll make a necessary pivot.
Yep. Okay. So if most of these change and transformation programs, one of the things that's often missed is people and culture. They focus on process or technology. And what you were saying earlier is that due to the pandemic, that there was this now atmosphere of maybe change, maybe forced change.
Yep.
So now people have that heightened awareness of needing to change, and maybe their behaviors are now changing. And so how have you found that for you? This has been a major positive for you, or?
Yeah, it continues to be a positive. I think culturally, both here in the States and globally, I think all of us, have a somewhat of a demand now that we kind of have an expectation and a demand that things will get delivered in a virtual world, right?
Mm,
We do that with food delivery businesses. We do that with education now, where if the kids are sick, well, they'll just Zoom in, right?
yeah, yeah.
And we see that in healthcare as well. So I think if any one good thing came out of that kind of forced environment over the course of the last couple of years, it's that the culture globally has really gotten to a point where they've said, hey, we're going to lean on technology,
Mm.
either out of convenience or out of requirement.
Yep. Okay. Have you seen out of that that there's, you took the early adopters, maybe the laggards, but you're going to get some people that just won't, for whatever reason, trust technology, trust the data. What can you do with that?
That's okay. Right. I mean, healthcare, as I mentioned before, is a touch and feel brick and mortar business.
Yep.
And we're not trying to replace that. That'll always exist. And so, what we are going to capitalize on, what we are going to capture are the individuals that are saying, hey, I'm okay doing this virtually, right? I wouldn't want to have a knee replacement done virtually, right?
Yep.
But I am okay, doing a cold or a flu or a COVID check, or even a routine a routine visit that doesn't require touch and feel necessarily. I'm okay with that. And I think, to your point, as we look at biometric devices and kind of the continual growth and innovation in that space,
Yep.
that data becomes a lot more rich. It becomes a lot more trustworthy for providers.
Yep.
And I think we'll continue to see alternative business models to the brick and mortar setting that
Yep.
may capitalize or utilize that a lot more so.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to say. The business model earlier is that those brick and mortar organizations are effectively, if they're moving on or making a part of their offering digital, or a digital front office, I think the word similar to use, then that is changing their business model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that those organizations, those traditional kind of health systems, health provider organizations, that are adopting those strategies, it's not a replacement strategy, right? I don't see a hospital closing their doors and saying, hey, we're not going to provide bed care anymore, and we're just going to be all virtual. We may see virtual only hospitals, but that's not realistic, right? There will always be people that need to be at hospital, and the care and the touching care of a physician, etc. What we're trying to do is say, hey, what are the procedures, what are the activities that exist in that environment that don't necessarily need to be brick and mortar for people that don't want it to be brick and mortar? Let's help virtualize those types of activities, whether that's through telehealth or social media or other capture programs where we can take the expertise, that knowledge transfer that exists in the healthcare sector, and move that downstream to the consumer in a better, more meaningful way.
Okay, yeah. So there's a big thing, like in these transformation programs, around knowledge transfer is a big thing. Like usually it'd be the consultants that will come in, they'll work through the project, the transformation with the client, and then the consultants would leave with the knowledge.
Correct.
Yeah, and the organization would go, oh, we have to bring the guys back again because they've got the knowledge. And none of this knowledge transfer they talk about actually happens in reality.
Right.
Yeah. So are you seeing what's a major, the organization and the market, the industry has changed from the brick and mortar, they've gone hybrid, they've got some elements now of digitalization. Where is it going? What's next?
Well, that's a good question. I wish I had that crystal ball, because I'd start building for the crystal ball. But I would say we're still, like I mentioned before, we're still very fledgling when it comes to virtualization in healthcare. There's still a lot of lift there. There's a lot of industry there. I think that the health systems of the future will be a strong hybrid that have some capabilities in a virtual environment, that obviously have capability in a brick and mortar environment. And then, what that looks like in 5 or 10 years from now, I'm not really sure.
Okay. I could see your business, your platform being very useful over here in the UK, because the inefficiencies that they have here, even though the private health sector do have, and I've had them myself with the virtual meetings, but it has been almost a hit and miss trying to get on a call with a specialist or practitioner that does a particular type of injury. I've fractured my ankle snowboarding, and needed to get treatment from that, and then getting passed around and going, these guys don't really know about the fibula. They know about every other bone, and not exactly the fibula. This is, do I actually have to walk into this hospital myself with my broken leg?
Right. Well, I think that goes back to the big data kind of component, right? Being able to look at providers as you're analyzing a provider to see, being able to look at the data and say, hey, look, this provider's done 5,000 ankle surgeries, right? At that point, they really know the ankle inside and out. That's the guy I want to talk to, as opposed to maybe a generalist that maybe doesn't have that same level of tenure given the condition that you're looking for. So, you know, when we look at matching people with the right, you know, with the right providers, it's really kind of a basis around the algorithmic approach of taking a look at the data, building the filters, and then, you know, allowing consumers to interact and engage with those providers based on you know, based on that match
by their criteria. The with my ankle, actually, I was in a cast. I was in an open boot for 12 months, and you know, it's like the usual, you know, when there's some fraud going on in the bank, and the only way they found out about the fraud because that one person that managed the fraud was away. So I went into the hospital, and my usual specialist was away, and the other chap that I saw, he said, "This is the first time we've met, but I've had a look at your record, and I'm not too sure why you've been told this what you've been told, but we got to put you on this over here." And I had a take-home ultrasound little strap-on Exogen, it was called, and then within 3 months the thing was healed. And I was like, isn't that funny? Hey? It's
and
great.
it's just, healthcare is just like any other industry, right? You know, it sometimes it takes a little tweak of who you're visiting, who you're seeing, you know, their expertise, their background, being able to kind of hopefully search for that or build that criterion at the beginning saves a lot of inefficiency and a lot of, you know, wasteful spending, both on the time of the consumer as well as the provider.
I definitely could have used your platform at that point. I would have, you know, picked the right guy from the beginning. I came back from Averios in France, and then with my no cast, I got to London, and they said, "Where's your cast?" And I said, "Well, they never gave me one in France." And they said, "Well, if you done it here, you'd have to get one." And then they said, "Have you been walking on it?" And I said, "No, I've got the boot and I've got my 2 crutches." And they said, "Well, it's got bigger." And then that's where it all started.
It shouldn't matter what country you're in, what hospital you're in, or what provider you see. It should be the same.
That's why I couldn't understand. And I thought, why would you do it differently in France versus in the UK? So who's missing the trick there?
Knowledge transfer.
We're clearly missing. I think you need to roll out that platform, you know, in Europe.
We're going as fast as we can.
No, good man. Okay, Brian, we might wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time. There's some great insights there. I want to play it back to you. That you talk about capability management. I think that capability management in this context talks about how much the organization can handle. That you want to manage that. Now you have a data evidence-driven approach. You use big data algorithms to understand or maybe possibly anticipate what those trends are, and then you can give hypotheses to the practitioner or for the client, the organization, and say, hey, how can you maximize the capacity, let's say leakage or availability that you've got using your data. Now, from a digital transformation projects perspective, that would be, I see it myself with these big transformation programs. The programs I work on they range from 250 million to 500 million pounds, so big projects. But they mainly throw a lot of money at technology. And when I talk about technology, mostly infrastructure. And then they'll do a little bit about on the software. And then lastly, they go, actually, we never thought about security. And but you saying from your perspective, you put security first.
Yeah, security and privacy are paramount for us, right? This is healthcare. Those are not traditionally private or secure type of conversations. If you're searching Google for a condition, right, you know, you're going to see ads. You're going to see that's all going to get sold back, you know, to advertisers, to pop ads and showcase, you know, those types of searches that you're making. You know, we took a different approach because it is healthcare specific. We took a different approach to that. So we don't sell ads. We're not going to allow for that to happen. It's a private search. If you come to our site and search for teenage pregnancy, you're the only person that's going to know that you searched for teenage pregnancy. We're not going to, you know, sell that to advertisers. So I
Yeah.
think that's absolutely paramount. The other thing, back to capacity kind of management, the other thing, because we own the search side, we own the search engine, we would know before any other areas would know if there's a region of the country or a region of the world that's seeing, disease spikes, right? So
Mm,
if we start seeing a lot of analytics saying, hey, everybody in, Columbia, South Carolina is now, searching for, flu symptoms, but abnormal flu symptoms, and we see a spike of that search, we could go back to the health systems in that region and say, hey, look, we're seeing
agree.
this from a search perspective way before they're going to see that,
Mm,
as from a capacity management perspective. So there's some, altruistic type activities that help us kind of see what the general populace is searching for,
yeah, leading indicators for you.
before they hit the system.
Yeah, no, very good. So yeah, that's a like in the UK right now, there has been a few incidents with the track and trace system,
Hmm.
some leaked data, so people's details have been leaked. It's like, whoa, you've got these multinational, multi-million-dollar platforms, but you can't control the data. And this is, I think that you get automatically people getting a little bit concerned about
Yep.
using these systems because they go, it's not secure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's that's the fundamental design element when we look at healthcare specifically is, most people, are private about their healthcare. It's,
Mm,
on top of finance, it's probably the most private interaction that you do virtually or individually. And so, people want to make sure it's secure. They
yep.
don't want data leaks or data breaks. They want to ensure that the whatever platform they're using to manage their care or manage their finances are, safe and secure.
Yep. Okay. So your tip then would be for the guys running these transformation programs, do not put their security data management at the end of the process, but instead put it at the front of the process.
I mean, it depends, right? I mean, security is paramount, I think, in all cases, but I think there's a handful of industries that are verticals that it's absolutely paramount first and foremost,
Yep.
and I think healthcare and financial tech are probably two of those.
Mm,
And am I worried if somebody leaks that I bought 10 t-shirts last week? I'm not too worried about that, right?
yeah.
If somebody leaks that, I have a disease state that I don't really want to share with the planet, that's a big
Yep.
deal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And you had a big thing on engagement, user journey. Well, your version is the patient journey. I think
Yep.
that's pretty key. I've done a couple of UK VI, visa and immigration border force programs, and they talk about the digital customer journey or the passenger journey coming from inland, approaching the border, passing the border, crossing the border, and on to the other side when they land on the side, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And equally, I would say for the healthcare, for the patient journey.
Yeah. I mean, the pain points that we explain as part of that patient journey, everyone resonates with, right? We don't have a hard time explaining the problem that we're trying to solve with Patient Genie. Everyone gets it. Everyone understands it.
Mhm.
Everybody's lived through it.
Yep.
Building a richer, more efficient patient journey is the difficult task that we've chartered ourselves with.
Okay. So I just from what the little that I've learned in this conversation on the benefits of Patient Genie has to offer and the size of the market that you've got there in the US, like in the US, what have you got? 340 million people?
Give or take.
Yeah, we got over here 16 million people. And
Yeah.
so, you laugh at that because that's so tiny.
We've
Um,
got some lift. We've got some lift.
yes, that actually, I would love to get over to there. Actually, I've been there a few times snowboarding, as we said before. I hit the record button a little bit late, but yeah, I love the US. I particularly love the snowboarding there. You've got so much space, and so I've never seen so much space compared to
Yeah.
Italy. Been to Italy a couple of times, and those places so narrow and steep. I've accidentally collided with a skier who just happened to be standing at the end of the train park. It's like, what are you doing standing at the end of the train park? And I never seen a lady scream that much in all my life, even then when I skied off. Yeah, so yeah, crazy. But yeah, the US, I would love to get to the US. So you have a process you follow. You're very fortunate about the culture is now embracing the world culture is embracing this change. So like that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's helped the I don't know the inertia or the when we're talking change management about the
Yeah.
reluctance to change, or there's too much change and people just go, there's too much change, I'm not doing anything now.
Right. Right. Yeah, and we have some positive momentum going around virtualization, not just in healthcare, but kind of the entire planet relative to tech and industry as a whole, right? We see that in every industry, just that kind of virtualization and technological advancement. So, to be at a point where we're beginning and making a contributing part of that is exciting. So we want to capitalize on that momentum.
Yeah, I think you're got the the probably the background, the platform, the timing is right. I think the question would be not so much on now. The topic would be who's your competitors?
Yeah,
There's a
good
couple.
question. I don't know if we have any direct line, what I would deem as direct line competitors. There's a
Yep.
lot of great companies that have built great products that do a lot of the same kind of pieces that we do.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think there's anyone right now that's really concatenated that into, what we're doing and really kind of reined all those in. And as I mentioned before, as a partner-led organization, with that as a strategy, we
yep.
know we're not going to build everything. We know we're going to require, really strong partners in their specific swim lanes and niches, which they know better than we ever will.
Yeah,
But
yep.
being able to concatenate those strategies and those best in class products into one consumer experience is really what we're focused on.
Okay, yeah, that's a good takeaway there for the listeners about bringing in the required experts. That instead of you got your four options: buy, build, or borrow. And most of the time, people go, I want to build it. I want to build it, and I want to build it myself, and I want to own it. And then how long does it take them? Forever.
Yeah,
And then it
yeah.
doesn't
And
end.
by then the market's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There's been a couple of projects I've been called in to help fix and rescue, and they've tried that. It's going to build it everything. So how did that work the last time?
Yeah.
No good. And you want to do the same? You think it's going to? What do they call that? Definition of insanity.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So we'll capitalize and we'll, we're a rising tide lifts all ships mentality organization. There's some great products out there and we'll build those relationships and we'll do it together. It's a big enough space. There's plenty of room.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So is there the trajectory for Patient Genie? Well, we're talking. There's going to be a founder's exit, or you're going to list it?
Good question. At this point, we would probably look at an exit. Once we get the strategy a little bit bigger, because it's going to have to scale, and outside of doing a big raise or a big public raise like that, we would probably lean on somebody to scale it. But if we don't find the right partner, if we don't find the right deal, then we're not opposed to taking it public if we need to get to the scale point that we need to.
Okay, good stuff. I'll be watching with great anticipation. Now, I think that's every entrepreneur's, I don't know, the dream is to take your idea from the kitchen table and then to ultimately list your company, your startup.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is a dream. I mean, there's some, excitement around that, but I think for us, we're more focused on the mission than we are on the exit, and being able to make that a better experience, being able to make consumers more comfortable with virtual health as a general rule.
Yep.
If we can do that and check the box, the exit's somewhat irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's. I was asked too about my business and Hoba, and what's the exit strategy? What do you mean? I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying helping others. If I didn't start this, the pain that I've gone through and the highs and the lows, just to have someone tap me on the shoulder and say, "Here, we'll take over from now." So what are you talking about?
I mean, that's not a bad approach either, but we're pretty early stage still. We got a long road before we get to those conversations.
Yeah. Well, I'll be watching because I'm coming over to the States. Well, I get But I'll get a lot of half the book sales that sell over in the States, 1 to 2 copies a day. And then most of half the traffic is from the States, and I do no marketing or anything. So that 340 million population,
Yeah.
I think I've got to get over there, you know.
Organic growth is the best growth.
Yeah. Plus, you got the best ski fields in the world, so I'm really keen. Yeah. Well, Brian. If I could this season, I will. But if I can't get to Europe, then it's like, you know what? I'm coming over there. I'm coming to Utah, Salt Lake, and I'm gonna get on the mountain with you.
Come back, best powder on the planet.
Oh yeah, champagne powder.
That's
First
right.
time I heard that, and I was like, no, I never heard of this and what that's about. And then we stayed in a chalet that had a little balcony. My mate just said, watch this, and he just fell face forward into the ground and into the powder. And he came out and was like, ha ha ha, laughing his head off. I go, that's amazing. I've never seen that in my whole life. Yeah, champagne powder. Yeah, amazing.
It is the best stuff.
Yeah. I got to bring my longboard though. Can't bring my little jibber board. You were stuck there, staying there, getting nowhere.
Bring that powder board.
Yeah, the 161. No problem.
That's right.
Yeah. I've been there. Actually, yeah. I don't know. There was a video up on YouTube of my riding at Woodwards, but mostly it was on skateboarding on a ramp. Yeah. But if you look it up, it might be there. Yeah.
Come right anytime.
Well, and I'll look you up when I get over there.
Good stuff.
Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with with Patient Genie. I'll be looking and watching. I'm going to follow in the footsteps. And if you do an IPI, I want to get in sneaky before they go to the list.
Excellent deal. We'll keep you in mind.
Okay. Been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay. Talk to you later. Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye.